Hello, and welcome to another episode of Momentum. I'm your host, Philip Allison. Joining us today is an assistant professor of electrical and computer engineering, Dr. Jean Mohammadi-Aragh. Jean?
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Well, one of the things I want to get started with is you recently were awarded, you and Dr. Ronnie Sullivan in aerospace engineering, a pretty important grant through the National Science Foundation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the grant is to look at different messages that we receive in cultures, and we're specifically looking at American messages and messages that Moroccan students might receive when they're growing up. And we're looking at the different cultures, the messages that they've heard, and how those messages may be encouraging or discouraging them to major in engineering, with the ultimate goal to be able to recruit more American women into engineering.
Yeah, I know that there's a gap involved in terms of engineering enrollment of women, and I would imagine this might go some way to help bridge that gap a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a need for engineers. When you look at it, we can recruit more engineers, universally, but also when there's only 15 to 20% of women engineers, that's something, well, if we target women, that's maybe a way to increase the numbers.
Yeah.
A little directly.
Have those numbers, that percentage, kind of changed over time, or has it been pretty steady? Or
it's been improving, and if you look at the College of Engineering here at MSU, we have had some targeted efforts in the past couple years, and we've seen the number of women increasing, especially in some fields. So when you're thinking about biological engineering or biomedical or chemical, and our civil engineering department has also done a really good job, and that those departments have been able to show women how engineering is going to help society, and that's something that women really want to do.
Yeah, well, and I've actually talked to Dr. Sarah Lee from computer science, and she's focused on some of those same issues in her area. And one of the points that she makes, which I think is a really good one, is that when we limit the talent pool, we limit the possibilities for solutions and new ideas and
that's
things
right.
Like that.
We all bring our own perspective, and so when you have that different perspective and you're looking at a problem, it's like you're looking at it from the opposite side, it may look completely different.
Yeah.
And so you can have more and better ideas.
Yeah. So what was the connection? I know we have the partnership with the International University of Rabat in Morocco. Was that kind of what led to comparing American messaging versus Moroccan messaging?
It is what led to the comparison between Americans and Moroccans, because we have this program where we're bringing students in every year, and we can talk to them about their culture, and then we can talk to them about their impression of our culture once they've been here. It was maybe the catalyst that had us apply for the degree, or for the grant, because we thought this degree program is an opportunity for us to interview international students from this kind of same population. But I guess it really kind of came organically through Dr. Sullivan and I having conversations about, we're talking about women in engineering, but we both have connections to another culture. So her father is from India, my father's from Iran. And in those cultures, we don't really have the gap. You have women pursuing engineering degrees at similar rates to men. So we had some of these conversations about how we could use that knowledge to help within our college. But then when the Moroccan cohort came the first time, there were 50% of the students were female. And we thought, here's another culture. It must not just be our thinking, it must be really happening. And so the discussions kind of built, and we ended up applying for the grant last year.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And it's such a kind of a confluence of events, like you said, where you can kind of mix and match these cultures and look at what works here and what works there, and maybe kind of take some best practices from that.
Absolutely.
So have you guys, I know the grant was just awarded, I think in July. Have you guys kind of started any work at all, or are you still in the planning phases? Or
So we started, we're going to interview students, and we're preparing for the new cohort to come in January. And so we've developed our interview protocol and gotten that approved through the Institutional Review Board, and a few more housekeeping things like that. But we haven't started our data collection yet.
Okay, and how long do you anticipate the program to last?
So it's a 2-year grant. We'll interview in January, and then we'll interview the following January, wrapping it up 2 summers from now.
Okay, and is there like a practical end that you hope to get to? Like, are you looking to kind of nail down actual messaging that might work in the U.S., or is this more kind of esoteric in nature?
Yeah, so we would like to develop some messages. I don't know that we'll get to the point where we get to test them, but that might be a follow-on grant or something like that. But we are trying to look at some messages that could come out of these interviews.
So it could actually have some very good practical applications.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
Join us here again in just a few minutes.
When you're the best, everyone wants to see what you'll do next. At Mississippi State University, our team of world-class rocket engineers is venturing beyond boundaries, building rockets like none before. We're launching a new era of space exploration. We've developed cutting-edge technology that's helping us build a rocket that can travel at 4 times the speed of sound. Fast? Yes. But more importantly, revolutionary. For you and for a space program that produces many of the conveniences we enjoy today. We're shaping your life in ways you never dreamed. What's next? Watch us and see. Imagine energy independence that moves 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. We are at Mississippi State University, where we ring true.
Welcome back. We're here with Dr. Jean Mohammadi-Aragh from Electrical and Computer Engineering. Jean, we were talking about your grant that you're going to use to study messaging for prospective engineering students in both America and Morocco. And one of the things that I find interesting is that kind of came about because of a working group here on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. So the College of Engineering has different working groups where they provide a little bit of funds for faculty to connect with each other and develop ideas to write grants. And one of those working groups is the Engineering Education Working Group. And that one has faculty from all departments in the College of Engineering and some departments outside engineering, so like from the College of Education, Education Psychology, things like that. Mm-hmm. And we meet, every month, have lunch, talk about grant opportunities, talk about ideas you've had. And that was one way that I connected with Dr. Sullivan, was through the Engineering Education Working Group and in conversations that we had through that.
Because like I mentioned, she's in aerospace engineering and you mentioned College of Education, so a lot of this work is truly interdisciplinary.
Absolutely.
Which is really great for our students and for the research projects that can kind of come out of that. And talking about research projects, you also are kind of wrapping up another National Science Foundation grant that is the Writing to Learn to Program.
Yes.
And I thought that was very fascinating. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
So the premise of that is that we've had years where we've learned how to communicate with humans. So you've taken English classes through high school and everything. There might be some debate about whether you're really capable, but you've at least had some practice. And then you take your first programming class, and now we're telling you to communicate to a computer. So you're communicating in a foreign language. You don't know the syntax, the words that are part of the vocabulary. So some students struggle with programming because of that. Mm-hmm. So if we could teach students first how to tell a human what it is they want the computer to do, then we can work on telling the computer what it is we want the computer to do. And so we use writing. We have students think about the problems, write out what they want the computer to do, how they think they'll solve it. Then they try to code that. And if the coding's not working out, a lot of times they'll go back and revise their writing because maybe the way they were first thinking about it wasn't correct or going to be the best solution. And so then they can revise it. And it's kind of this back and forth integrated writing and programming at the same time. So we wrote a software program to help support that. Dr. Brian Jones from Electrical and Computer Engineering works with me on that. We implemented that in some of the programming courses. The computer science department helped with that. And we collected data, and we saw that as students develop as programmers, they have different writing styles, so they explain why they're doing things a lot more instead of being literal, x equals 1, and then they said x equals to 1. What is x? So we've collected a lot of data on that, and we're wrapping up, and we're going to submit a follow-on proposal for that work too.
Well, like you mentioned, it is kind of a completely different language in the sense that, French is another language or Spanish is another language. And I think kind of trying to learn how to process that from a mental perspective and from an educational perspective is fascinating. So that's very cool that you're working on that.
Yeah.
And again, sounds like it's interdisciplinary, which is very exciting.
I'd really like interdisciplinary projects. Yes.
Well, another project that you're working on is the toy adaptation project, and I would love to know more about that.
Okay. Yeah. So it's it's one of my outreach projects, but it's a project that it allows students to learn just a little bit about engineering and then apply their skills to solve a community problem immediately. And so in my first year engineering course, students learn how to solder, and they're soldering circuit boards. And then we can take a regular toy, open it up, examine the circuitry, figure out where the electronic switch is activated in that circuitry, and then we can create a bypass for that so that we can wire in a switch that a child with special needs would be able to use. So for example, if there's a teddy bear and you have to squeeze one of the paws really hard, some people may not have that ability, but we can wire in another switch that maybe they slap with their hand, maybe there's something they just can move their finger a little bit, and that triggers the toy. So now that child can interact with a toy, and they can learn things like cause and effect. I push this button, the toy sings a song. And so we're working with the TK Martin Center and some speech therapists there. They can prescribe the switch that the child needs, and then they can just use the bypass that we've created in the toy.
Oh, well, that's fascinating. So it's certainly beneficial to people in the community, but it sounds like it's some practical applications for our engineering students.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which I think would probably be good, because I think a lot of them worry that they're just going to sit in class and have to memorize formulas and things like that. But this gives them an opportunity to do something very practical.
Absolutely, that's the feedback that we've gotten from the students.
Well, we are running out of time, but I want to ask you just if you had any advice for students that might be considering engineering, and specifically computer engineering. What would you kind of tell them?
I think that they should take advantage of opportunities. So whether it's an opportunity in high school to take an engineering class, or a summer camp, or maybe it's just an opportunity to talk to someone they know that's an engineer, or that their parent knows. Maybe they're able to shadow someone, something like that. Any type of opportunity. I tell our students, our undergraduates here, to do that too. There's student organizations, all kinds of things you can be a part of, and it's going to add a little bit more.
Okay, well that sounds great. Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media. Thanks for watching.